Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. Truth is, I suck. At least for the very first few years of my life, that's what I used to tell myself almost on a daily basis. You suck. You never be number one in class. You suck. You never get the part that you wanted. What happened? What changed? Today, I'd like to share with you the 4 major changes that happened in my life. These are the most important lessons that I learned. Some of them happened in a school setting, but it's not exactly a part of the curriculum. Some of them I learned later on in life, and one of them was the most stupid, silly obsession that I had that turned out to be the most dramatic change that anyone could possibly ever look for in anybody's life. First of all, I'm going to take you to the very first performance that I got to do as a solo artist on stage. I was 5, even younger than William. You know how in kindergarten, teachers like to put these little kids in thick makeup, dress them up in really weird clothing, stick them on stage so that the parents will be proud of them. This was one of the occasions. I was graduating kindergarten, and each class, one representative was to be selected to speak at the ceremony in front of 2,000 people in the audience. As a 5-year-old, what do you know? So we were given 3 sentences to practice. All of us had to do an audition, and I kind of took a look at the sentences. I'm like, okay. That massive voice came like, you suck, you won't get it. I practiced without any expectations. So eventually it got to the day when the teachers were like, okay kids, gather around. All the little 5-year-olds circled around for tea. And then that was the audition. The first one stood up, read that little piece of paper out. He did okay. Second one stood up, she did slightly better. And then it was my head girl in the class. Now she is this doll-faced, beautiful, super cute, totally smart, intelligent, perfect prefect kind of head girl that everybody loved in our class, and she nailed it. She was amazing. Instantly, I was like, wow, I'm gonna have to compete with that? No way. Now get this, when I was 5, I was that. I was a dork. I was shy, not exactly talkative. This came later. Those 3 sentences that I would do would be the most amount of speech anyone would have heard me say. And eventually it came to my part. It was my turn. And I said no. The teachers were like, what do you mean no? I said, no, I'm not doing it. And so she went on, okay, we'll go to the next one. So then the rest of the class did it. They were about to announce to the entire class that of course the head girl was going to be representing the class. But my teacher came back to me one more time. And she said, Alyson, are you sure you don't want to try? That huge voice that used to say, I suck, became this tiny little weak whisper and said, you can do this. And so I had no idea where that courage came from. But I stood up and I delivered those 3 lines. I still remember them. It went on for me forever. And the end of that story, my first change became this. That's me. Representing the class at the ceremony. Yes, I got the part. And that 3rd girl, that was the head girl. She never talked to me again. So that was the first time that I really got the chance to be on a stage and speak to people. And God, does it feel good to be heard. And so the first change in my life was I really do love being heard. And that's why I signed up for radio. Talk about maximum effect. I talk to a microphone and people can listen to me, yes. So when I was 16, I joined a competition. And long story short, I won a contract, basically. So that was my first job ever. I've never done any summer job. I've never done anything in an office. That was literally the first thing that I've ever done as a career. I signed up to be a DJ. Now, as a 16-year-old going into the business, everyone that I worked with, all of my colleagues were double my age. In their head, they're thinking, what does a 16-year-old know about broadcasting? Or what's a teenager doing in my station? Why does she deserve to use the mic? So I realized the second change had to come. I had to sort of play a role. I played a character. I had to tell them that I can do this. So what I did, I dressed myself differently. I realized I can't really wear baggy clothes or be the tomboy that I used to be anymore. From the appearance to my performance, I changed. My very first task, this is hilarious, was to do a street survey. This was a weekend program that I was doing at the time. And of course, they would give me the crappiest job in the world to go do a street survey. Get 20 answers to this question. How would you like to have your soy sauce when you're having your sushi? Do you dip it in the rice first? Or do you dip it on the meat or the fish? How do you like your sushi with soy sauce? Stupidest questionnaire in the world. So there's me as a 16-year-old, not knowing what I'm doing. Hi, you don't know me, I'm a complete stranger. How do you like your sushi? You can imagine the amount of turn downs I got. But I realized that was the first chance that I can use to show them I can do this. So it became the second change in my life that I realized not only I had to try, I had to go the extra mile. They wanted 20 answers, I gave them 40. The next challenge, they want me to pursue a different voice, to show a different quality in the voice, versatility. I gave them 3 characters to choose from. I realized by going that very extra mile, people look at you differently. Because you're not that stupid girl that knows nothing about it, because you're showing dedication. You're showing that you got the grit, you got the endeavor, you got the dedication to manage this. And in that sense, you can shut anybody up who's looking down on you. So, by now you're probably wondering where I went to study uni, or where I got the English, where I got the accent from. How many of you think that I lived in the States before? Okay. How many of you think I came from Canada? All right. How many think that I used to go to international school? How many of you think that I was born and raised in Hong Kong? Wow, did you Wikipedia me or Google me? Okay, that is the truth. This accent, this is going to be very embarrassing. Thanks to Ted for taping this. I can't really say I never said this because it's so embarrassing. This accent came because of boy bands. When I was a teenager, I was obsessed with boy bands. Get this. To a certain extent, I would listen to the cheesiest boy bands all day, every day. How many of you know of the Backstreet Boys? Really? You suck. How many of you heard of NSYNC? Because of Justin, right? Okay. Westlife? Okay, wow. That's so impressive. Okay, so these are the kind of boy bands I'm talking about. I was so stupid. I was listening to pop music all day, every day. So literally, I would run back from home to school, or the other way around, from school to home to listen to pop tracks, to watch the videos, to buy the VHS and the LPs, to see how they are in interviews, imagining that they're talking to me. You know, back in the day, when you want to have an obsession being realized by your classmates or your peers so that they don't really laugh at you, is to introduce your obsession to them, so then you kind of make them into a part of your gang as well. That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to encourage some of my female classmates to form a girl band with me so that we could sing boy band songs all day. Now, to do this, I was putting together a lyrics book because, you know, back in the day, there was no Googling for lyrics. So what happens is, if that little booklet that comes with the CD, if that one doesn't have lyrics, that means there is no lyrics. So I was, this is really ridiculous. I would play the first couple of sentences in the song, pause it, write it down. Play the next couple of sentences and pause it and write it down again. I was dictating the lyrics. It became a lyrics book about this thick. All Backstreet Boys songs, NSYNC songs. At the very beginning stage, I got about 70% of the song. I wasn't quite sure. By the end of it, I would miss maybe 1 or just 2 words from each and every single song. What I didn't realize was I was being so obsessed. I didn't know that I was actually training my listening skills by dictating the lyrics. And then I was trying to sing these songs, apparently. I finally convinced a couple of friends that would join my girl band. And I would record myself and listen to them again, and then we're like, How come when they sing get down, it sounds different from when we say get down? And so they're like, hang on a minute, the accent's different. So we practiced the way of how we spoke in English to sound more like the Backstreet Boys, to sound more like the songs that we listened to. And by doing that, again, I was training up my English without me even knowing it. You know, the beauty of having an obsession is that when you're obsessed, it's aggressive. You don't just sit there and wait for something to happen to you. You go out there because you're so obsessed with it, and you don't even know that you're pursuing something so badly, that you're trying to change the people around you because you want them to share your passion. And that's when you're so passionate about something, this humongous motivation becomes second nature to you, and you just don't even realize it. So this obsession, I still talk to these couple of friends every year. No, we're not in the Spice Girls. We didn't become anything like that. But that was another drive for me to become what I am today, to be on the radio. I thought, you know, if I'm not going to be in the Spice Girls, I might as well become one of those people that can interview the Backstreet Boys. How about that? So that was one of the reasons why I did radio. And after winning the contract, I realized, okay, I do need to shape myself into, ooh. By the way, that's the first letter of my surname. Ow! Thank you. So what happened was, this turned out to be my second goal. I'm not going to be in the girl band. I'm going to be interviewing the Backstreet Boys so that I can meet them. So I won that competition. I got into radio business. I wanted to interview more people. But the thing is, it's such a stiff competition with so many people wanting to do exactly what you are doing. So the way to stand out, a couple of quotes that I live by. These are my life models. One of them was coming from a teacher in drama school. I went to the APA. He never taught me. I was over listening to him talking to other students in the other class. And he said, you're only as good as your last show. Meaning, no matter how many awards you won before, if you don't do well in this coming performance, it means nothing. Because this performance represents who you are right now. So you gotta always be prepared. You gotta always be ready. And you gotta be there at the level that you want people to see you. A very similar quote that I also love comes from a New York baseball player legend. Babe Ruth once said, yesterday's home runs don't win today's games. Same philosophy. But again, no matter how many clubs you are cheering right now, by the time that you are actually needing to show off your talents, if you don't deliver that, it doesn't really mean anything. So anytime that you get the chance to shine, you shine the brightest that you can. So for me, going back to my childhood dream, I got offered to do press conferences for international stars. My first gig when I was 17, I was doing an album launch for Korn. Everybody was very emo-like. It was a very scary setting, but I wanted to deliver so that I could be one step closer to my dream. And so gig after gig, I tried to do as best as I could, and eventually, I met them. Was I as excited as I thought I would? Not really. I grew up. And they grew up too. Man, it felt so good. It's almost like my comeback to that tiny little whisper that once said, you can do this? And my answer to that was, I did it. And guess what? Your tiniest little obsessions that you might have, you may be crazy, obsessed about an app on the phone or a game that you're really endorsing right now. It could be the craziest thing to others, but you know that that's what you're passionate about. Let that passion be an obsession. Let that aggressive obsession take onto your journey's direction. And one day, you might just be able to say, I did it too. Thank you.